but here we are. My name's Rick Starbard. I'm the co-chair of the Government Affairs and Economic Development Committee. And along with Glenn Morris, who is my co-chair, we try to bring, things related to government and employment and all to our members. And so this morning we've got Todd Angilly. Many of you may know Todd from his singing at the Bruins games. We won't put Todd on the spot this morning and have him sing the national anthem and stretch his vocal cords so early. But it's great to have Todd here. Todd, former probation officer, working in a probation department, currently a candidate for clerk of courts for Essex County. But Todd is here this morning to talk about a program. And we talked about this a couple of years ago as you were starting to ramp it up. Job training and creating employment pathways for the recently incarcerated. So as a way, when folks serve out their sentence, that they have a place to go to be gainfully employed and have a career path, so that they hopefully don't find themselves back in that same position. So it's a long title to the department you work at, so I'll leave it up to Todd. Todd, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Rick. Thanks everybody for being here and giving me this opportunity to address all of you. So yeah, my name is Todd Angilly, and currently I'm the Director of Workforce Development with the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. So that is an agency within the executive branch of the state government. EOPS, as it's the acronym would be. It's a lot easier to say that than the whole big title. And what happens in within my position and who I work with other agencies would be state police, parole, fire services, the criminal justice information systems. Those individuals, that agency keeps record of individuals throughout the Commonwealth, their criminal records. And of course the Department of Corrections, which is the state prison system. And why I feel the need to kind of differentiate or at least explain it, you have the county. So of course we have Sheriff Coppinger here in Middleton and Essex County. That's the county jail. And each county has its own county facility. The Department of Corrections is a statewide. So individuals who have been convicted of felony charges go to one of our locations throughout the Commonwealth. That's the Department of Corrections, state prison system. So yeah.
So the last time we had spoken, when I saw you in an event, you were talking about some of the training facilities.
Right.
So are those located inside the jails themselves, or is it a place that they go for training?
Mm-hmm.
And is it during the time of incarceration or after the release?
Yeah, so good loaded question there, Rick. That's awesome. So within the state prison system, we offer comprehensive, intensive vocational training to pretty much all of our population. There will be a portion of the population which gets classified not appropriate. Those would be the more intensive charges in individuals that are what we would call lifers, that are not going to leave our facilities, and some of the other more specific charges, like the sex offenses and things like that. So what we're able to do is sort of classify and identify career paths of our individuals prior to release. The idea is that we've come such a long way. There's been a huge paradigm shift since my days in probation, where you would try to advocate for an individual with an employer. And so I would go to Rick and I'd have somebody I thought was appropriate and was interested in the auto body industry or in that line of work. And having that conversation with that employer was really hard. In as little as right before the pandemic. And I get it. It was you're talking to somebody who's running sometimes a multi-million-dollar business. It could have been their own business, whatever it is. There's responsibilities this individual has, and the idea of hiring somebody with a criminal background you know, is a tough decision, a tough, you know, thought to, you know, really consider. And I get that, but what we've been able to do, you know, a lot of different factors have figured into this, sort of helped us. Unfortunately, events happening in, you know, in the world, you know, the pandemic and that employment landscape where it's just hard for employees to find, you know, people willing to work or looking for work. So we've been able to now kind of jump into the spotlight with a lot of employers and say, you know, these are our individuals that we'd like to market to you. And, you know, the idea is that, you know, I'll go back a little bit. When I was a probation officer prior to getting with EOPS, I got heavily involved with the National Institute of Corrections, which falls under the Department of Justice. And this was right around 2010 or so. And we were identifying contributing factors to recidivism. So recidivism being that the individual reoffending. You know, how do we stop that? At that point was the cycle of recidivism. An individual would commit a crime, be adjudicated, be sentenced, go into a facility, a state facility, a county facility, whatever it is, and return. And really, there wasn't a big emphasis or focus being put on preparing that individual for that reintegration, for that, you know, that what we call reentry. Okay. And we saw this basically what we call this cycle of recidivism. They were going out, they were going right back to what they were doing, because they really didn't have the guidance or the understanding of how to, you know, I wouldn't say conduct themselves properly, but to become, you know, fruitful members of society. And we would see that the same people coming back to us within these facilities. So the question became, how do we stop this cycle of recidivism? So there were a bunch of contributing factors, but one of the major factors was employment. Now, you take employment and you say, well, there's employment and then there's employment. So, you know, we can get anybody a job doing something. You know, you sweeping the steps of some building or not that working at McDonald's isn't an honorable job, but we weren't identifying those career paths. We weren't identifying the skills and interests of the individual. To simply just place somebody in a job kind of puts yourself in this, you know, all of you right here, kind of put yourself in that seat. If I just send you to a job, all right, and it's nothing that you want to do, that you have no interest in, you're not going to stay there. You're gonna, whatever's gonna happen, you're gonna grow tired of it. There's no passion, there's no interest, there's no view for the future. You're not, you know, committed to that job, that occupation. So the idea was, we need to identify these individual skills and interests. What is their work history been? Sometimes, what have their hobbies been? You know, what have, you know, just things they did as a kid or whatever that is, and being able to transfer that into you know, working skills, transferable skills, whatever that might be. And then sometimes it just becoming an aha moment for the individual. Like, I always liked working on cars with my uncle, and we would rebuild cars, and that was so much fun. And just being able to help them identify, well, that's an occupation, that's a job, that's a career, that's something you can make a lot of money in. And imagine that you get up and go to work and enjoy what you do and make money, provide for your family, stay out of trouble, and off you go. So that's what it became, and that's what we're really doing right now within the Department of Corrections. And this is happening nationwide, that meaningful employment journey, identification of career pathways for these individuals as they return to society. That's kind of a
What are some of those pathways, Todd?
so we have an array of vocational training and career pathways, everything ranging from some probably would be more you're already thinking of them. So culinary, service industry, automotive. We're looking at a diesel mechanic program that I'm going to be bringing in for the DOC within the next year in collaboration with Massasoit Community College. We have sheet metal manufacturing, welding. Well, there's a lot. I should have had it all written down for you. I apologize. You know, actually, screen printing. The females at Framingham, actually, there's some of these vocational programs are. Are more confined to certain institutions. So the females have, more notably done, so this shirt right here is actually, our embroidery, screen printing shop does these shirts. We actually have a store, at our headquarters in Milford, that has a lot of these, products that we sell. Our carpentry woodworking shop in, Shirley is top notch. And I can say that because in my capacity as Director of Workforce Development, I'm not only working behind the walls, helping to identify these vocational programs or identify what's needed or identify what we need to enhance these programs, but also going out and speaking to employers and getting a sense of what they need, in terms of the ideal employee. So when I said the wood shop is top notch, I've visited several manufacturing companies where it's almost a identical operation between, the air ducts and everything and the tools and as we have there in Shirley. And that's another big focus too, is we try to stay, we try and we do stay current with all current practices and certifications and licensing and training programs and training opportunities for the individual. So our people aren't going out and using archaic tools or practices. They're actually working on current, especially when you have like a lot of the manufacturing and metals, sheet working, sheet metal and welding programs.
So I would imagine that there's only certain programs at certain facilities. So are they confined to the programs that exist in the facilities that they're incarcerated in, or do they go out for training during the day at someplace else?
So I'll simply say yes. What's interesting about that, it is, and right now it can sometimes get a little, I wouldn't say frustrating, but we'll have an individual say, at Shirley, who really wants to do the automotive program, but the individual hasn't had the opportunity yet to be classed down to our facility in which those individuals go to the automotive program. So our automotive program is only offered to the minimum facility, which is out of Pondville, which is in Norfolk. So a lot of times, we'll have a client, I call them clients, say, I really want to get involved with the automotive program. How do I get that? But what we can do is we can start to create that track. And really too, there's a lot of collaborative efforts we can put into that. So if they're waiting to get classed to a different facility where that training program is, there's other things we can be doing to prepare that individual. They all have their own tablets now. That's within the past year. Each person within our facilities, all of our facilities, has their own very personal tablet. Those tablets have all of our educational programs, a lot of our testing information. They can work on their HiSET and other type of, OSHA and other type of certification. So they're not just kind of just sitting in the queue waiting. They're actually working towards getting everything they need. So when they are classed to that facility, they're ready to go. So almost like, just doing all the prep work. So yeah, unfortunately we are, whether it be because of equipment or the garage is our garage where we do our automotive program is in Milford. It's just unfortunate that we don't simply have a garage for each facility or, and all that, but it's nothing that precludes them from being able to do that.
And places like, I think Sheriff Coppin just talked about job training and all, and they have some facilities up there in Middleton as well, don't they?
Yeah, I believe that's with the farm. A lot of it is at the pre-release, which is up in Lawrence.
So do you work with them or do they work separately?
So we sometimes will get the same client, so to speak, at the jail. That the individual can be awaiting trial or they've just been in the system or whatever that is. So being able to identify what their needs are vocationally and things like that. But there's a lot of, that's been the biggest thing, is to collaborate. If we can't talk to all these other agencies, because we're all more or less dealing with the same people, or encountering the same people. So we need to be communicating, intensively. But
And to
we don't have
eliminate
any
redundancy. all
what's that? Yeah,
too.
exactly. And a lot of times too, an individual could spend, it could spend anywhere from 3 months, it depends on how long the trial takes, while they're sitting while they're at a county facility. They're still taking advantage of training programs or preparatory programs. And when that individual is sent to one of our facilities to be able to receive that information and see where they are, we can meet them where they're at, rather than having them start all over again. If they made it halfway or 3/4 way through their high set, we know we can finish the process. And that's why it's important for us to communicate with the sheriff's department. So yeah, while we are in a different governmental branch and agency, it doesn't mean that we don't work together and try to collaborate as intensively as possible.
And do you try to handle the job placement, and if you do place folks in somebody's business, is there follow-up?
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. When I was a probation officer, and I don't know if I can reference people in the crowd, but Don Castle is here, and former probation officer, and Don and I would work a lot together on these types of initiatives, we'll call them. It was easier as a probation officer to be involved in the community and kind of do that follow-up, because we were helping with the job placement, but we were also intensively supervising that individual. So we would able to stop by the employer, or kind of keep up with how the person was doing. My position is actually a new position within the past. I think I've been in this role almost 2 years. And the focus of what I'm doing is not only working behind the wall, assessing and keeping track of our vocational, training programs, and who's going through, and who working with the caseworkers in these different facilities to identify who has what certification, where they're going, and how to start that process. But also working in the community with employers, constantly addressing, Chamber of Commerce's, different community groups that work with employers. And, we still need to, I want to stay away from certain words. I don't want to say convince or pitch, but one of the kind of eye-opening things to me is there's really been a lack of knowledge amongst employers that this is actually happening, within our facilities, that, I think we all get kind of pulled into TV shows and movies and all that stuff, and we think it's I don't know, whatever movie or show you, and then you think that's just simply what it is. They sit in a cell and they bide their time and wait till, the final day. But, these individuals are actually taking part, even within our prison, what we call our prison industries program. It's a job. They have to get up, they have to report on time, they report to their position, to their job. If they don't make it for whatever reason, if it's an unexcused absence, so to speak, they get docked. Sometimes they get ejected from the program. It's taken very seriously. They are paid, so we're preparing them not only with the hard skills of the specific training, whatever they're doing, but also those soft skills, showing up on time, being able to work well with others, being in that environment of a workplace. I think, we've all worked with people we'd rather not be around, but that's life. And for a lot of these individuals, they thought that they could address that. And, we help them understand that, a work environment is can be tricky, and that's part of life. But the bigger picture is that there's the opportunity for you to go to work and obtain a wage and provide for your family. So yeah, I think I forgot the question. I went off on a tangent, but yeah, so there is it's harder now. And then what happens is, and maybe I'm gonna go off on a tangent again, but we've been really successful in doing these. It's been my intention to bring what we're doing to the employers, rather than, when I was a probation officer, you had a certain area you served, so to speak. So it was easier. You you could hit the bricks and go one employer at a time and kind of introduce yourself. When you're working on such a large framework that the entire Commonwealth, you really have to get creative and try to do the most you can with it. I wouldn't say as little as possible, but you can't go business to business throughout the entire Commonwealth and try to, pitch what you're doing. So what we're doing is a series, and we just did our, I think is either our fourth or fifth one, and we intend to come to Lynn for the next one after the holiday. But I've been calling them employer engagement events. And what we do is we work with that Chamber of Commerce. So we've been Worcester, Springfield, went out to Springfield, worked with them. Basically an area that's kind of been untouched by us, really not addressed employment-wise. And we identify those highest areas of release and go to those, and I go to those areas. We've been to New Bedford. So I said, New Bedford, Worcester, Springfield. We did do one in Essex County, our first one, to just kind of a test run, but we want to come back to Essex. We want to obviously do Boston. We're going to be going back out to Worcester because we actually had to wait list a considerable amount of employers and people. And what these events are is they're focused specifically at HR professionals and hiring managers and business owners, with the idea, much like you read today, is we have a population of people who are returning and have a criminal background, but are viable candidates for employment. And we want to provide an overview of what we do to prepare these individuals. So it's a half day, but it's quickly becoming. I think we're probably gonna have to do with you guys. It might have to go to a full day because of what we've been able to add in response to the inquiries from the people attending. So we just basically map out. We do a short Corey presentation to help the HR managers understand what a record is, what a criminal record is, how to obtain it, how to manage it, how to utilize it when it comes to hiring or considering hiring individuals with criminal backgrounds, and also what are the rules and laws, is actually Mass General laws, and how you utilize a criminal record. Some punishable by fine and commitment, and haven't had any of that, but the state has really, the Commonwealth has really stepped up in helping us and helping these returning citizens in this process to return and find employment. So there's been a lot of the criminal justice reform and what employers can see on records and what charges stay on an individual's record, and whether or not they go away after a certain period of time. And then we have somebody who works for the Department of Career Services, the mass hire portion of it. And that's from Mass BizWorks, and he makes a presentation and talking and providing information to the business owners and how they can utilize a lot of the tax incentives and the bonding and a lot of the training incentives. There's so much money out there offered and waiting for people to apply, for business owners to apply for, for a wide range of opportunities and reasons. So he kind of, and then talks about the process and how to obtain that money and all that stuff, because we want to be able to provide employers with incentives. It's a big decision to make to I think, for people to hire somebody with a criminal record. So there are federal and state incentives, and then we actually have a panel of our experts, so to speak, within the Department of Corrections and EOPS. So we have the Director of Education, the Director of our Industries program, our Director of Reentry. And we actually have a new program that we've been doing, which is called Credible Messengers, which serves to the question you asked about. Wow, I can talk for a while, huh? I just realized that. But it's exciting stuff. That's why I kind of go off about it. But we have these Credible Messengers, which we have right about 6 or 7 of them throughout the Commonwealth. So these are actually individuals who have been hired by us, by EOPS. They're state employees, individuals with lived experience. Some of them have done, there's a couple that have actually done significant time and have actually worked through the system themselves and gotten themselves back on the right track and actually operate and work as mentors for individuals returning. So now, it's not simply opening up the door and saying, okay, hey, here you go, call Rick. He has an auto body shop. He's looking for guys. Here's his number. All right, talk to you later. This individual now can make that transition. It's a lot more seamless because this credible messenger meets the person in the community, and everything from just meeting up for a cup of coffee to talk through some of the stresses of returning, or maybe giving them a ride or whatever, or just offering some of their own wisdom and experience themselves and how they made that transition back. So now the individual has someone in the community who's helping them and mentoring them and being there as a support. But now the employers, I mean, let's just face it, I've never owned my own business, but I can only imagine you got a job to do, I've got a product to create, or I've got a population to serve. I don't have time for somebody's, personal problem. Like they say, leave your personal problems at home or don't bring it to work. Now you've got somebody in the community. Now you get somebody in the community who's helping this individual, deal with a lot of these issues that a lot of us deal with, but becomes a new thing, for them making this transition. So it's quite a process. And even our reentry department, we're identifying these career paths 6 to 12 months prior to their release, and we're actually starting that process. So we're actually working towards talking to employers and saying, I could call Rick and say, I have somebody I think would be ideal for you. He's going to be living in Lynn. He's gone through our automotive program. Great attitude, has OSHA this, has, so on and so forth. Would you like to talk to him? And Rick would say, well, when's he getting out? Well, he's not getting out for another 3 months, but maybe you can start talking to him now and kind of create that relationship or whatever. So we're actually able to do that via Zoom or in person. And we're also, as a result of these events, bringing employers into our facilities and letting them see in person these training programs that they're going through. And most recently, we had a company come through and they were viewing the welding program and watching the guys weld. And they said, well, what does he do? I said, well, don't talk to me. I don't know anything about welding. Go talk to him. And I can talk to him. Yeah, it's not go up to him, talk. It's not, it's an amazing thing to see employers come in and interact and ask questions, and they get to boast about what they're doing, but yeah, it's great stuff. Take a breath.
Does anybody have any questions for Todd? Judy?
A couple of months ago, I did a television show with Sheriff Coffinger, and we focused on the STAR program.
Yeah.
And in particular, he brought up the issue of a new program starting in plumbing, and he was very excited about it. I don't know if it has already started, but I thought that was incredible, in partnership with Essex Tech. That leads me to the question I wanted to ask is the partnerships that are doing the training programs. Are they primarily community colleges, vocational technical schools, private agencies that normally are unions, for example, that are part of the IBEW or RIW? Who are your primary training partnerships?
Yes. How's that? It's amazing that you asked that question, because that was a big education for me, coming from probation and going into this. And really quickly, as an aside, being in the Superior Court, the bulk of my caseload, so to speak, individuals, probationers, were coming from what they call the from and after sentence. So they would be committed to a certain amount of time in the state prison system, and then they would have 2 to 3 years of probation from and after. So now this individual is leaving a state facility, the state prison, and coming to me, and I was helping to kind of finish up their time with and helping them make that transition. And what I failed to do, and I'll take ownership of it, I failed to do is I never reached out to the state prison system and say, well, basically all my people are coming from the state prison. Maybe I should see what they're doing while they're here, because they would tell me all these training programs. And for some reason or another, I just never did, and I don't know why. So when I got to the DOC and EOPS work, the amount of partnerships, I mean, we can use all of the lingo, partnerships, the collaborations, the programs that are done with other entities. Community colleges, of course, that's been a big thing, at least, especially within the last 2 to 3 years, with the tuition waiver and all that for some of our older people. But
Reconnect.
yeah.
Free.
so
They're over 20.
exactly, so we, being a state facility, so I mean, Queen Sangamon, Wachusett, Massasoit, Bunker Hill, all of these are on, all of these institutions are on board. But we also have programs, educational programs run by BU, BC, Northeastern, Tufts. So these individuals are actually able to start in on a college degree while they're with us. And the partnership goes as far as they could, just because of time or whatever, maybe they were 2 or 3 classes short once they were released. Well, that college is gonna step up and say, okay, well, now come do it in person, and we can finish this up. We've done a lot of collaborative programs with, BC in particular was an entrepreneurial, program through the law school. So it actually helped both. It was a very unique program. And that's the other thing too, is you really gotta get creative. Not only in identifying career paths and, programming, but really who are our partners? Because I mean, we all like to be, I think we all want to be a superstar, be on the front page, and Todd created this thing and it's the best thing since ever, and I get to stand there and get a pic, but I'm done with that. I think we all have our strengths, and why not work together? I mean, I'm more cliches, right? Work smarter, not harder, we work together as a collective. But that's really what makes these programs work. So with the law school, they would accept the individual, our inmate or client would have to, more or less, the best thing, a word I can come up with is audition. They have to apply and provide a business plan, and a very detailed business plan of what their plan was. And then once they were accepted into this entrepreneurial program taught by a BC professor, it helped the law program, because the law students were learning business law. So they partnered this individual with a law student who would work together with, not only with the person to help them get their business up and running, but also was helping them with the instruction and getting the experience of business law. And we had one individual, I don't know what happened to him, he released, and I think it got funded by one of the towns in the South Shore, but he had a business idea of family members who couldn't find transportation or couldn't afford transportation to visit, family members in an institution. There was like a transportation company. And so he was creating this transportation company for family members to visit people, but he had it all. It was the idea of him having to draw all that up and identify that. So yeah, so to go back to your question, but also along with being unique and being creative, there's a reality factor. And we all know it, and really it comes down to, that's why bringing the diesel mechanic program in, we've started a CDL program, which in its pilot phase has been very interesting, because you learn all we call them barriers in our work. A lot of the charges that preclude somebody from getting their CDL, we have to identify that. So now it's a very intensive process to qualify an inmate to be appropriate for the CDL program, based on prior charges or driving history or whatever that is. But it's all about finding out what are those vocations, those jobs, those skills that are needed for success and most needed in the community. But then it ends up not even being barriers for the individual, but barriers for us. So plumbing, HVAC, electrician, huge. I heard a stat that the average age of an electrician in Massachusetts is 58. I can't verify that. I just
Almost
know.
all the trades. are in
Yeah,
that- in
I
that same
mean,
boat.
that's telling me I had to have I had a leak in my house. The guy told me it was $500. I gave him $500. I can't do it. I don't know if it was worth $500, but I had to have it done. These are jobs that are needed and are available and are right. However, I have to go a step further, and as I'm talking to these employers, I'm gonna go to an employer and say, hey, you have a plumbing business, an HVAC business, these are the people I deal with. Can you tell me what's gonna come up in this process? Todd, I love the idea. This was a conversation I had with my plumber out of Topsfield, and I said, tell me, do you think you can do this? I gotta bring these people in we're gonna go to people's houses. it's gonna be a touchy subject. And a lot of companies will contract out to government entities. There's been some companies that, one in particular go over to GE or things like that, so they have to pass a more intensive background search. So that's where the frustration comes in with me, because I know that we could put this program, get this program up and running, and it would just go like wildfire within the DOC. But I also don't want to put somebody through a program only to be met with barrier after barrier after barrier. So now the person just throws their hands up and gives up. So it's a double-edged sword, and it gets frustrating a lot of times, but it's really all about, before you put something into play, is this going to work? Is the full process going to work? But yeah, again, going back to your original question, the partnerships and everything is tremendous, what we're doing.
I was gonna ask a second question, but
Sure.
I don't want to do that if somebody else is going to.
It's okay, Judy.
Okay, I was at the dedication of the most amazing life science building at North Shore Community College in Danvers.
Mhm.
And the reason I'm asking the question is they have a special scholarship that anybody going into anything connected basically to the nursing program.
Mhm.
And my next TV show is based on the LPM, which is just a 10-month program.
Yep.
The first pathway. But I'm talking about a school that hires actors, for example, to play the part of patients. And they're able to, a student is able to work on a patient who's basically an actor with an ailment. The teacher is outside of that. Every single classroom is a simulation laboratory.
Mhm.
And they have like 15 different majors that are all healthcare, like surgical technicians, for example, every type of equipment that's being used in surgery. I mean, this is a high level healthcare, high tech, the highest tech I have seen anywhere. And I've seen other life science buildings. And we're talking basic nursing services, anything CNA, LPN, RN, all the way up. Would you have that kind of funding? And you're giving a person really a great start if they have a chance to choose those 15 majors that are being offered there, because the need is so great.
Right. And again, we will be met with, what are the
Yeah.
disqualifying charges, things
Right.
like that. Right. However, I will say, much like what I detailed before, where it was really hard to have that conversation with an employer and to convince them, so to speak, I'll use the word convince them, to bring somebody on. What I'm encountering right now is a lot of businesses are doing, I call it like the 7-3. They'll say, okay, we'll consider somebody, but they can't have had a felony charge in the past 7 years and a misdemeanor charge in the past 3 years. So now that, you know what I mean? So it's almost like you got somebody backing up, before they would just say no, now they're starting to loosen up a little bit. It's kind of like being a kid, and you keep going after your parents, I want to ride my bike, down the street. Okay, fine. Like almost like you're wearing them out. But again, that's balancing a lot of different factors. There's that, like you said, that heavy need for employees, for a workforce that, and it's not lowering standards, it's just getting employers to identify their needs and say, we've got a tremendous population of viable candidates that we really think you need to look at. And so they're starting to acquiesce or whatever that is. And like I said, I want to have those are the conversations I want to have. And this goes back to like what I was saying, being unique, and just keeping up with the times. One of the programs that we're looking to bring in, that we're actually, when you talk about partnerships and all that, we have a solar panel installation training program right now that we're putting. It's the 5th class, but each one takes about 5 or 6. Usually they cap it out at about 12 people. So about half the class they kind of hold for us for referrals for people on parole or people, releasing. And they're getting top-notch training, with all the collaborative certifications, the OSHA and the electrician and all that, to install solar panels. And then what we're doing is we're identifying I actually have a meeting today, there's we've all heard of this, I'm sure, but, you know, whether it's aquaponic growing or some other different type of growing, there's been, research that shows that we're not gonna be able to sustain ourselves as a society with just traditional farming and growing, that we have to find other ways to do it. And, I've been working with this company out of Agawam. It's terraponics, so sort of set up, it's indoor growing, but in dirt, sort of think of like a bookcase with a bunch of trays of dirt and, you know, all of your leafy vegetables and anything basically that can be grown in dirt. It's organic, it's disease and infestation free. It's 21 days seed to harvest. It's a better product. And actually, a lot of, you mentioned before, a lot of the vocational training schools have taken this lead. So everywhere from Shawsheen to basically all over the Commonwealth, they possess 2 to 3 racks within their facility and are utilizing the product that they're growing. And we've identified multiple opportunities with this, not only with the growing and being able to use it for consumption for our population, but also identifying that this is the way it's gonna kind of start going in society. So, and then we're able to link that up because it can be run off of solar power. So now it's like, well, let's find that connection. So again, it comes down to, you know, all of these unique opportunities and pathways that we can identify, you know.
How many people do you actually have in the vocational programs currently in Commonwealth?
I don't have that number. It's funny, I was coming here and I was driving, I said, geez, maybe I should have those types of numbers, but I know that our, about 3 years that I've been with EOPS and DOC, our population in total has dropped dramatically. We're actually, I'm sure you've seen on the news, we've actually closed a couple of facilities. You know, so that's kind of the path where it's going. But I would say probably about a third of them, if I'm going to guess, and I apologize, I'm not trying to be, you know, professional and make a guess, but because there are some people that aren't, you know, going to be able to do our these training programs, but I'd say about a third of them have that opportunity and have gone through or at some point involved. And we're starting that from the second they arrive for classification, where you know, they come in and they do that intake process, and amongst everything else, we're identifying, you know, career paths. You know, what is it that you want to do? What have you done? What interests you? Given all of these different programs, what are you most interested in? And then our reentry program actually was, so as part of our transition out, these individuals are not only releasing with the certifications and training that they'll need to acquire and move into a career, but also they are leaving with all of their IDs, Social Security card and birth certificate, mass ID. We have an MOU with the RMV that we can actually get their IDs before they leave. They leave with healthcare. All their appointments are lined up, housing. All of this is addressed because, again, we've identified if someone doesn't have a place to live, they're not gonna be able to work. They're not working, they're not gonna be able to keep that place to live, so on and so forth, and all of those collaborative things. So, you know, we're not putting the onus on them.
How long have the programs been going on? This particular type of program, vocational training?
Oh, I mean, since before, it's been going on. The prison industries, as we would call it, has been going on. I don't exact, but I mean, much longer since I've been there. But what we're doing now is we're focusing in a lot more. It would be the workers or the employees were predominantly lifers, because they have that mass core industries, which is what the prison industry is called, has to sustain itself. It's self-funding, so they have to sustain themselves. So that's how, when they sell their products or provide services to municipalities, you know, park benches and tables and things like that, you know, through the welding and the sheet metal and manufacturing portion of it. But now we're opening that up to you know, give those opportunities to the people that are going to be, and plus, you know, a lot of our population is being reassessed with their charges and now looking at release. So
Any other questions?
Yeah, it was just, Curious, what's sort of like an ideal employer relationship that you're, like a very successful employer relationship that you've had, particularly in how you interact post-hire, both pre-hire, but also post-hire?
I'm glad you said that because that's been the frustration and I'll use the frustration word because, we have these events and everybody's on board. And I think we can all relate to that. Yeah, this is a great program, I'm on board. And then all of a sudden you put somebody in, we're all here and all of a sudden I go, all right, Rick, so you ready to go? Oh,
Right.
wait a minute, hold on a second. So that's been a little bit of frustration, meaning, now that I have people coming out, we've had these events and I've identified those employers that are willing to come up and now I make that personal phone call and I say, hey, remember that event you attended and we had this conversation? I have a couple of guys coming to your area. I'd love for you to take a look at them. Oh, well, this and that. So it's been a little rough go there, but the ideal relationship that I have with employers and want to have is that one that it needs to be honest. And we can cater. I can't tell you what this individual did or anything like that. But I am going to assure you that it's appropriate. So if I'm working with a popular local sports venue, I know not to place certain types of charges and backgrounds in that place of employment. So we really want to identify what it is that you need, what I have, and also assure you that I didn't just meet this person yesterday and now I'm trying to get him a job.
Yeah.
We've acquired this relationship. We've been working with this person for a significant amount of time. They've gone through all our programs. We have all the results. We have and really too, you can't predict, human behavior. Whether you hire somebody from my referral or somebody who walks in off the street or applies through Indeed. Any of them equally can have the opportunity to mess up or whatever, but we also are able to, maybe, it's going to be a little more of a sell for you than it is for you. So I'm going to come at you with, well, let me make you feel a little better about this. We have the work opportunity tax credit. We have the bonding. We can bond these individuals up to $25,000 a piece. It's an insurance policy. Actually, anybody can be bonded. You don't have to be a person with a criminal background. But so I want to have that, that relationship that I'm sure it's no surprise to everybody here. I have no problem talking. I can, what I mean? But I want to have that as much as you want to have that. I want to be available to you all the time because, their success, our clients, their success is my success, and we're only going to be as strong as our latest referral and reputation is everything. So we want to make this work. So I'm not sure if that answers the question. Yeah.
Is there an interaction post-release when requiring individual per se, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned that mentor.
Yeah.
That's with them. Are they with them even post?
Yeah.
Release and during that employment period or during time?
The individual can kind of navigate that themselves. It's nothing that's forced on them or a policy or anything like that. And I think I opened up the door too to happens all the time. I would have an employee, even my time in probation, geez, you're not gonna come walking through the place with your badge and everything and start, blowing it. No. But, we're respectful of the environment, of the employer. We just want to be available as much as the employer and the individual needs it, and we don't have to make it a big production. But, I make the analogy all the time. I'm a self-proclaimed, fisherman, right? And they say if you take a fish and you just throw it back in the water, it shocks the system and it's not gonna, you have to place the fish back in the water and kind of whatever, and then it, kind of springs it. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to help them with their return and make it not such a traumatic, because it can be. When you've been in a facility, when you've been in custody for whether it's been a month or 10 years, to make that transition to all of a sudden walk out and you have the power to make every decision now. You're not being told, what to do and when to do it. So that's a big transition. And these individuals have class down. So we're not talking about someone who's been in, the movie style facilities. They're the pre-release, centers, more or less like dormitory type. you know, facilities, but we want to be, I want to be as available to the employer and we can, you know, cater to the needs. If we've got some, you know, if I've got somebody who needs a welder, I can identify that and make it where rather saying, well, you know, you need someone who can work the grill. Well, I have this guy, he was a landscaper, but you know, he's a good guy. So, you know, give him a try. You know what I mean? We're trying to be a little more specific, and I'm not sure that answers your question.
So Todd, how do you get the word out? Is it something that you know, you send a flyer to Christine and she blasts it out in an email, puts it on the website, you know, if anybody's looking for help in these categories that you can be contacted.
Yeah, and all of that. You know, we're the big vision is that we're making that presentation, having that event and addressing as many employers and HR professionals as possible. So that gets the word out. But I love to go and talk to individual businesses or even businesses by vocation. One of the calls I put out is the Trucking Association of Massachusetts, you know, just being able to, you know, even if we're going by vocation. So yeah, so I, you know, I'd love to share my contact information, you know, through the chamber and all of this. That would be great. And then it's just a simple phone call. It really is. It's a phone call, email, and I'll be right there. We'll make a time and I can accommodate anybody's, you know, whether you want it to be Zoom or you want me to come out in person, whatever that is, absolutely. Because I think we all know once that employer has that positive experience, you know, you guys all talk to each other, you know, so the word's going to get around. It's going to kind of help itself. But
And did you say that there's tax credits?
yeah. So quickly, there's we call it, everything is an acronym with a nickname. So WOTC, like WOTC, it's Work Opportunity Tax Credit. That's a federal program that's been going on. It used to be renewed every year, and right now the federal government said that it's in. Like, we're not going to even go through the renewal process. So a business, depending on the length of incarceration and other contributing factors, an employer can file for this tax credit through the IRS or Department of Labor and get up to $2,400 in tax credit. It's a one-time file and a one-time award. But it's also for people who might be on SNAP or any other type of governmental assistance, housing and all that. If that individual acquires employment with your company and retains employment in a positive way, after 6 months, the company can apply for that tax credit. It doesn't happen. I'm going to be honest with you. It doesn't happen a lot. I did hear of a company, because I work on the federal level too with the Department of Justice. There was a colleague in North Carolina, and he had a company actually 1 year didn't have to pay any taxes because he filed enough of these WOTC. He hired enough people and it just worked out. But again, that's one time. And then yearly, and this is an untapped resource. The Department of Career Services with the Department of Labor in Massachusetts has an exorbitant amount of money designated for bonding. So if you hire an individual, you can apply for this for a bond. If you're, you know, there's that apprehension, I'm not really sure, I'm still kind of, you know, Rick could be, I've got a lot of expensive equipment here, you know, whatever that is. So whatever is now up to $25,000. So if that individual willingly, purposely, maliciously, you know, damages or steals or anything like that, the employer can file to be compensated for that loss. So like I said, it's an incentive, it's an insurance policy to help try to make the business owner feel a little easier about hiring. And then there's different grants and training credits that go through the Department of Labor. And actually we've got it's all acronyms and titles but it's the I'm drawing a blank right now, apprenticeship program, the state through the Department of Labor. They've actually stepped up with a ton of money where they'll actually come in and pay for an individual to be like, the company would hire an individual as, say, a mechanic. And then the apprenticeship program would fund that opportunity for the individual and identify the needs. You know, the employee would say, you know, it'd be good if you did this training or this training, and would actually pay for that. So it's not free help, but the company is actually getting a lot of assistance, you know, monetarily. And in the end, you're getting an employee who's going to be more and more qualified Because that's the idea too, is that these individuals, the people, my clients that I work with, want to get with a company and work through that company. They're not interested in bouncing around. They want to find a home and they want to learn and they want to become a part of that and have the opportunity to advance, have benefits, provide for their family. But as an aside, it's interesting, in my time, especially working with Don, we had one company who filed for a WOTC, credit. There is such an urgency for employers that they just want, the feedback has been, I just need people who are gonna show up and work and be a productive part of my team. That's what I need. I'm not interested in all the other stuff. I just need an employee. So it's an interesting irony or whatever, if that all this money is being offered and the employers are just, I need people.
Yeah, I used to tell my students when I was teaching at Tech that, you can take the basic skills that you pick up here and then be on time every day, sky's the limit.
Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to too, is when we work with our individual with the soft skills, and that's where I'm learning, where I'm doing the most of my learning, is my interaction with employers and what their needs are. And I had an employer once, he was very, very verbal about with his frustration, and he had a manufacturing company in New Bedford, and he was just, he's like, these kids are coming out of college with more degrees than a thermometer, but you can't have a conversation with them. They're all on their phones. They call out sick when the new Xbox game, comes out. And I get complaints. It's actually very funny. I'll get complaints from employers of individuals that I place. They'll say, tell this guy to stop showing up early. Tell this guy to take lunch when I tell him to take lunch, and tell him to go home. Like, because they're just so thankful, and they just, the appreciation aspect of it. And let's just face it, that the population I'm working with has had to deal with people their entire life. They've had to navigate through life by interacting and reading people and this and that. They're the ideal employee. So the soft skills are already kind of embedded. It's all about helping them use them in the right way. And when they see that they can have that opportunity to do that, they quickly, their allegiance, to an organization or to a group of people is already strong. It's all about transferring that into the working world, and the feedback that we'll get. And I'm sure Don got when he was a PO. We were working together. Whether it was the parents or their spouses or even their kids. My clients, my probationers would come and see me, and they were just proud that they could buy their kids a pair of shoes, or take their girlfriend out to dinner, and with the small things that we take for granted. So it's a generational thing, and it's a public safety issue. If these individuals are working and paying their taxes and all that, that burden comes off of society. And the goal is that we get to cut down on crime because they're utilizing their skills in a positive way. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it's it's easy for people to, look at a criminal and say, lock them up, but then, then what?
Yeah.
And so there's got to be a plan for what comes next. So I think this is a great program.
Absolutely.
And, if we can get the information out on our website, and when you do a larger presentation, in this neck of the woods, definitely let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to collaborating on that. And we have a bunch of different spaces we can do it, and we can accommodate a lot of people. So let's spread the word.
Okay, and good luck in the race, and and we'll see you in the Bruins games in the fall.
Absolutely, right around the corner.
One thing I neglected, Seth, who sets this up for us every month, and it's a great space, and we're appreciative to have it, but you said you wanted to address the group for a minute or two.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Rick. Real quickly, I just want to get the word out there to businesses in this community that we have services that may be of use to you. We offer video production services, professional level. We have a cinema grade camera and staff who know how to use it. We can either through our membership and sponsor levels, or just as a client, we can produce video for you that you use on your social media or on your websites or wherever you would like to use it. So I just wanted to make people aware of that. Where we've had that program a while, but we're also branching out into more areas of fundraising and revenue. We are a nonprofit. You can sponsor LCTV News. We have staff out in the community covering events all the time. And those programs are online, on social media, not just on the old-fashioned cable channels. But we're there too. And you know, we're always willing to talk too about other ways of collaborating and cooperating. And we're tax deductible. So thank you for using the space. And also, speaking of, this is another service we offer, what's happening right now. So if you need a space, you need Zoom integration, or, you know, this converts into a theater. It's not just the TV studio.
Great.
All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Seth.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks again, Todd.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. No, we got a little bit of a late start. Next month, we're gonna take off. And September, we're hoping to have the new parking director, Jessica Chapini, with us to talk about some of the new initiatives and all that's going on within the parking department in the city of Lynn. Enjoy the rest of the summer. If we don't see you, see you at the golf course.